With Pokémon Legends ZA right around the corner, many Pokémon fans are excited to return to Kalos for both familiar and new mechanics. But it's not all sunny day and rose raids with the new release, as many are disappointed their longtime Poképals will be locked behind a one-way transfer if moved into ZA, after enjoying a fairly long stretch of compatibility via Pokémon Home. Some believe this is due to the addition of Latin American Spanish as a language option, but as a former software developer, I've a different theory. I'm Agentomega, and this is why you can't transfer Pokémon back from Pokémon Legends ZA. Now, before we start, advanced copies of the game have gone out, and there are numerous alleged leaks to varying degrees of accuracy. I've not partaken of many, if any, and as such, it is possible that I'm immediately already wrong. I would appreciate any spoilers to be held until after the official launch, as I will be playing the game here as well. First, let me explain why I don't think the lockout is language-based, at least not from a pure data perspective. Although adding a new language value to Pokémon data does break backward compatibility for that specific language, as it didn't exist in previous games, origin language entries aren't updated when moving into a game. We can easily demonstrate this by moving a Pokémon from an English save into a French one. This transfer also lets us make a reasonable guess about how origin language is stored, that is to say, not as pure text, because the French save renders ENG as ANG, for example, but as a hexadecimal value that is then used to look up the correct display depending upon your region. If this were the value preventing backwards transfer, it would only impede Pokémon from the new Latin-Spanish option. That suggests there is another data value inherent to all Pokémon that can and probably will be updated in Pokémon Legends ZA that also would break previous compatibility. There are a few mechanics, old and new, that we can rule out as being a limiting factor. Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokémon can be transferred without losing its status. Pokémon from Scarlet and Violet can be transferred to earlier games and regain their Tera typing when transferred back. Pokémon from Legends Arceus still retain their move mastery and alpha status. Pokémon can also be transferred to earlier games without losing new titles or marks. This leads me to believe that it is a mechanic that is returning to the series that breaks backward compatibility, but not Mega Evolution, as it's temporary and therefore not possible to put in Home via legitimate means. There is one somewhat niche, ironically oft-forgotten mechanic that was introduced in X and Y and more recently made an appearance in Sword and Shield. But because of its origin in Kalos, it makes me think there may be a return of the memory system. The memory system was an innovation that adds history to your Pokémon in order to strengthen your bond and make your companions feel more unique and alive. You can speak with an NPC in Anastar City in X and Y, Lily Cove City in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, or Jack in any Pokémon Center in Sword and Shield, and they will tell you up to 2 memories of a given Pokémon, such as a battle it was in, or where it was caught, etc. One of the memories of a Pokémon always comes from its original trainer, or OT, but if it has been traded or crucially transferred to another game, it can also have an additional memory from another trainer. This is where we have our problem. Any Pokémon transferred from Home into Pokémon Legends ZA will immediately count as having a different OT than the one in ZA, meaning any new memories that are ZA specific will be written to the second memory slot, causing validation of the field for previous gens to prevent transfer, as the data is out of range. Pokémon from SV do not appear to interact with the memory system in a negative way, as Jack will state the default, the Pokémon seems to have a fond memory, but it doesn't seem to be able to remember the details. Along these lines, Pokémon with memories of locations, items, and moves not recognized by the game have some error handling, and will display a generic term instead. However, a completely new memory hex code will not be recognized by Jack in Sword Shield, and may cause more significant problems without rigorous error handling. This is merely an educated guess, but being a dynamic data field that all Pokémon have combined with its origin in XY seemed to me, at least, a fairly compelling theory. Of course, it's also possible the Pokémon Company wanted a hard line between Gen 9 and 10, or is related to a new battle ranking system in Pokémon Legends ZA. In any case, it is somewhat disappointing to have a one-way trip after the interconnectivity afforded by Sword Shield, BDSP, PLA, and SV, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Before I sign off, let's also take a look at this amazing fan art I commissioned my sister to draw for the thumbnail. Originally, we discussed a similar goodbye between my Paldean trainer Alicia and her treasured Chinese Sneasler Mostara at an airport. As we hashed out the details, we settled on a train station as being a little more realistic and better suited the one-way nature of the upcoming transfer. She also left some delightful design surprises I hadn't explicitly requested, such as the train, loosely based on the TGV, having a livery in the color scheme of Miraidon. Feel free to pause here and soak in the little Easter eggs we've incorporated. If you want to see me bumble about in Pokémon Legends ZA in French, then feel free to click that subscribe button, and there's some other videos you may enjoy on screen right about now. Once again, I'm Agentomega, and I will catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching, everybody!